from the presentation, we can introduce ourselves. Carlo Di Primio, I know some of you, but I am the chair of this session. The other guests of the sessions, excluding Alessio, Andrea Zaghi, yes, now we are in a complete presence. The other participants are Lorenzo Mottura from Edison, Luca Bragoli from ERG, Xavier ROUSSEAU from Snam, TAMER EMRE, that is the first time we meet in our conference from, sorry for the name of your company.
Energy exists, Energy Exchange Istanbul.
Okay, and finally Alessio Cipullo from Elettricità Futura. I think that some of us are in Rome, other in Milan, and TAMER is in Istanbul. Starting with our session, I want to remember that the energy industry challenges to a low-carbon economy, the renewable energy and the gas role in the transition is a recurrent subject of a plenary session of the our conference on energy security. We think it is important to continue to analyze this topic because renewable energy and natural gas are two main pillars of the transition, and it's important to monitor how the development and the changes in these two sectors, also from the technological point of view, can impact and favor the progress toward decarbonization. But the title of our conference, that is, as you know, current and future challenges to energy security, I think it is also important with this title to analyze how the renewable energy and the natural gas impact the energy security, taking in account that energy security in energy transition is not just about having uninterrupted access to energy, but also about securing energy supply at an affordable price. From this point of view, the upheavals that have been characterizing the last 3 years, first the 2020, 2021 of the COVID pandemic, and the global energy crisis sparked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, have dramatically disrupted the path that seemed already traced out. This dramatic increase of energy prices, particularly of gas, due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the interruption of its supply to Europe and the risk for the consumer, industrial and civil consumers of not being able to meet their needs have deeply changed the short and medium-term perspective and role of the two sectors of renewable energy and gas, natural gas. The lower cost of renewable energy compared with the gas price for the electric production is strongly pushing their development, not only looking at long-term target, but also to contain the energy pricing in a short term. On the other side, the gas emergency for supply risk and dramatic price increase has temporarily stopped the role of this source as an intermediate low-carbon fossil energy to substitute other more pollutant fossil energy, like coal, oil. I think this is a starting framework for our discussion. And the distinguished speaker we have today in our session come from important companies and institutions with leading positions and the responsibility in the gas and the electric market, and have a wide personal experience and qualified background. Then I'm sure they will give an important and stimulating input to the debate. If you agree, I will start from gas, discussion on gas issues, and then I ask Xavier Rousseau, that in his position like Senior Vice President Strategy and Market Analysis of Snam, that is the National Gas Infrastructure Company, can give an opening discussion on this, starting from the crisis and going toward the change or the role that also in a medium, not only in long term, can have gas, natural gas. Xavier.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that you can hear me. And first of all, I would like to thanks for the invitation for participate to this interesting discussion, and very pleased to see other distinguished colleagues that will follow the discussion. As said, I mean, I'm in charge of the strategy in Snam, and the way we see a bit the transition and the situation today is definitely, as said before, I mean, the role of the gas in now, I mean, securing the situation that we are facing first, but then also supporting and providing a way to get to full decarbonization of the system. I will share some slides. I hope you can see them.
Yes.
And I will start, I mean, with some key basic facts, which is where we are and what are the trends that we see for the future. So on the left, I mean, this is the energy consumption in 2021, and the share of the different vectors that are used and final uses. So a large share is still oil-based. There is a 20% which is electricity, 16% is natural gas, so direct use of natural gas. Then the natural gas fits into the electricity system, so it's producing electricity, so it's taking part of the 20%. And then, of course, you have coal and some other fuels. No, so these are mainly some renewables, biomass, and others. So that's the picture where we stand. And the objective is clear. We want to get to net zero. At least, I mean, most of the countries globally wants to get to net zero with different time frame, but at least for Europe, this is set to be for 2050. And among the different trends, I mean, we recognize 5 different trends, which are different, but in a way interlinked, on where, I mean, we are focusing also our attention as NAM. So the first one is, of course, the electrification. The 20% that we see here needs to go up. I mean, this is a way to get electrified part of the final demand. But in any case, I mean, this number could go to something very close to 50% in 2050. So it remains a large share of the system which is not easy to electrify or not economically sustainable to electrify. So one of the two, either technical or an economic reasons. The second one is, of course, energy efficiency. That's the second key pillar of the trends, reducing the overall demand for the energy sector, while increasing the population, increasing the energy economy, increasing the industrial sector. The third one is of course we need to electrify, but also increasing the renewables, the share in the electricity sector, but not just the electricity part of renewables, but also what we call green gases, which is partially hydrogen and its derivatives, which is ammonia and other sea fuels, but also biomethane and other green gases. Then the fifth pillar is on CCS, so the way of reducing emissions by capturing them and storing permanently. They can be based on CO2 produced from industrial sector, or also biogenic CO2. So that depends a bit on where they come. So that's a bit where we see this, the industry needs to go. One of the elements that I'd like to highlight is that so far we have seen many different silos on the different vectors, so the oil one, the liquids, the natural gas, and the power. So the way we see the system in the future is definitely more integrated, just to increase the security of the system and not reducing them. So the fact that we have different vectors that can transport energy needs to cooperate among them in a way that is efficient for completing the picture. This is something that we have seen also for Italy, and then I'm coming to some data which are more related to the Italian situation. So Snam is the gas transmission system operator, is in charge of transporting and storing and regasify gas in Italy. He has also participation in other companies outside of Italy, but in Italy the role is linked to the gas, mainly the gas business. But anyway, what we did, together with our cousins, I would say, Interna, so the power operator, we defined the scenarios for Italy, and we look at the different sources with the same aim as described before, to get to net zero by 2050. And that's a bit where we see the evolution of the gas business. So of course there is the natural gas, which is seen declining over time. That's the fossil part of the natural gas. At the same time, there's an uptake of the green gases. The first one is biomethane. So the production of again, CH4, so it's methane, but from biological sources, so waste and other agricultural residues. And this is something that we see already in 2030 taking quite a significant share of the mix of gas in Italy. And then there's a third one, which is hydrogen, quite hot on the press in recent months and years. But also for Italy, what we see is an increase of the use of hydrogen. Today, basically, the hydrogen is only used as a feedstock in some of the chemical processes, produce fertilizer, or in refineries mainly. But what we see in the scenario is an increase of use of hydrogen also in the transport, so in the business mobility, especially linked to heavy duty trucks or shipping or other type of mobility that would need to have a reliable use of energy for the long distance, as well as some hard to abate sectors. So sector where is, as the word is saying, is difficult to reduce emissions. So the use of hydrogen can compensate and help for the reduction of the system. So that's a bit the picture we see for Italy. There is, of course, quite a significant uncertainty when it comes to natural gas on the supply side, and we experience it a bit in this period. So the picture you see on the left is the 2021, but it's quite representative of the last decades in Italy. So where we get the gas from and where we consume it. So the gas is mainly consumed in the north part of Italy, and the gas was coming mainly from the north, from Tarvisio, so basically the Russian side, as well as from the north, so Passo Gries, who is mainly the Dutch and the Norwegian one, the LNG, no, who are supplying it. And then there are the southern corridors, the southern routes, Mazara, so it's Algeria, Gila, who is Libya, and then Melendugno, which is a more recent one, is the top one is coming from Azerbaijan through Greece and Turkey, actually Greece and Albania. So this was the picture. Of course, it's not disconnected, so don't take it, I mean, as a map of the grid. I mean, the grid is there also in the center of Italy, but mainly the gas was coming from the north, no, and connected to the center of consumption. So what's happening is what you see on the right is the fact that, I mean, you have more flows from the south. These are increasing and will increase potentially in the future with the increase of the TAP that we are investigating at this point in time. There is new LNG terminals we are putting in place to support basically the reduction of the gas that we are seeing from Russia in particular. And an additional point is that we are seeing more and more export of gas from Italy. So Italy is used as a bridge also for the countries close by for their supply of gas. So there is a complete shift of the way we are importing gas and the way we expect to import gas in the future. So there is also a need for reinforcement of the security of supply given these new routes of gas. So that's something that we have experienced this year. The other point that we have seen a lot is around the storage. So on the left, again, a bit of the picture on the supply sources with the focus on how the flows shifted from the first months in 2021. So this is from January to November. So it's actually the first 11 months of the year. So the reduction of the flows from Russia, and an increase of in particular of the LNG and a bit of the Northern European one. So some LNG was coming from the north or from Norway. So that's the picture that we have seen for this month. Just to give you a bit of a sense, this is in billion cubic meter. I mean, in the gas business, we typically use cubic meter. Just to give a bit of a sense, this, I mean, if it needs to be in terawatt hour, which is a bit more close also to the power system, you need to multiply by 10 the numbers that you see on the chart. So basically, what we see, 26 BCM from Russia is 260 terawatt hour of energy that's been imported from Russia. So it's quite a sizable amount of energy that is moving from one entry point to another one. On the right, one of the other elements that it was crucial this year was the storage situation in Italy, where basically, given the high prices that we have seen in the period where we refill the storage, which are typically from May to August to September. I mean, in those months there was a clearly higher prices than in the past, and the expectation of very high prices led to a reduction of the percentage of refilling of the storage. So what was required by the government is a direct involvement of Snam to inject almost 2 BCM, so 2 billion cubic meter of gas in the storage system to get to a level of 90–95%, which is the level that we have today in the storage, in order to have a safe winter for this year. So that's an intervention that is not based on market intervention, but this is basically a regulated intervention that's been asked to Snam to compensate for the situation on the storage side. One other element which is relevant to remember is that, I mean, we typically look at the numbers for the whole year, so typically the 12 months number. What is also important is the peak capacity that we have to cope with. So as an operator, we need to balance the supply of gas every single day, and the fact of losing, I mean, one supply source or reducing it, like the Russian one, of course, has put more importance also on the coverage of the peak. What you see here is the peak of the last year, so in terawatt hour per day, so ranging typically from 3.5 to 5 terawatt hour per day of peaking capacity, and the total amount of capacity which is given by the different entry point and by the storage system. So thanks to the storage, we're able to basically compensate for the peak capacity that we have on the very cold day, on the very period, on some period of the year. So this, I mean, peak has started to fluctuate a lot during the last years, also because, I mean, part of the fluctuation was driven by the renewables. So once we have a shortage of renewable production in the power system, was the thermoelectrical unit in Italy was pumping a lot of gas. Hence, I mean, we had an increase on the peak of consumption for gas. So the infrastructure needs to be sufficiently resilient and redundant to cover for this production. But if I go back a bit to the situation I described at the beginning, so the fact that we are aiming to a net zero, we are not just focusing only on the current situation, the very difficult but situation which is peculiar of these days, but we're also looking at how to transform the infrastructure and the system for the next challenges. And the next challenge is basically the use of green gases and hydrogen in the mix. So what we are focusing a lot in the recent months is looking at checking that our grid is able to transport hydrogen, and all along the year we basically look at the different pieces of our pipes, and we check that the steel that is used in our pipes is ready for transport also hydrogen. And we started to test the results also with some European peers and university. The same we are doing for storage. We are checking the different reservoirs that are okay to use different level of blending of hydrogen up to 100%, and we are testing on the wells.
Yeah, I asked to summarize your last point, because we need to go on with the other.
Absolutely. That's really my last slide. So we are aligned on the timing. The other element which it's important for us as a system operator is to look at the picture at the European level, at least, or even broader. I mean, including the Mediterranean area, and the position of Italy in respect to the other countries. What you see here is one of the studies that we developed in the last year around the role of the backbone of hydrogen in Europe to basically transport hydrogen in long distance. And this has been done, as I said, in cooperation with the other TSOs, gas TSOs in Europe. And what you see on the chart is the flows that we expect could be transported and supply the demand in the next future. So this is a bit the picture and what I wanted to present today to you.
Thank you, Xavier. I don't know if the other speaker has a question for you. I have a question, but I want to go on with the presentation and try to make questions at the end of the presentations. Then now I ask Lorenzo Mottura, Strategy, Corporate Development and Innovation Director from Edison, to go on with its presentation. Please, Lorenzo.
So thank you very much for the invitation and for being here today. So
sorry if I stop you. Only to remember that our session, the end of the is 6:14 p.m. Then 4 p.m. Then I think that each of you has more or less 15 minutes for your presentation. Okay.
Okay, message is clear. Thank you. So just a couple of words about Edison. Edison is a energy player focused in Italy, and we are present all over the value chain, from the production of electricity, from renewables and gas, the import of gas. We assure 20% of the gas import in Italy, and then we are present in the downstream market, basically the sales of commodity and services, energy efficiency to industrial, public administration, and tertiary. So if we look ahead and we think in a transition to a low carbon economy, which are the three pillars? Two have been already mentioned, so renewable sources and flexibility for electricity. It's the first pillar. The second one is the responsible use of gas to enable the transition. Then we have a third one, which is energy efficiency and the support to clients and territories towards their sustainability path. So if we start from renewable energy and flexibility, and we look at the target for Italy in terms of Fit for 55, what we see is that it is expected that Italy should be able to produce 70% of the electricity needs based on renewables, which, if we just project some curves to 2030, this would mean additional 70 gigawatt of renewables to be developed in Italy. And of this, 55 gigawatt should be based on photovoltaics, half on, let's say, rooftop and half at the grid scale, and the remaining 16 gigawatt should be wind, again, half from offshore wind and half from onshore wind. So the target is very important, and if we look that we have 8 years ahead to reach that target, this would mean, let's say, installing 8 gigawatt of renewables per year. Now, 2022 has been an exceptional year in terms of installations of renewables. We will reach 3 gigawatt installed in 2022 with a strong, let's say, improvement from last year. Last year, it was only 1.4 gigawatt, but 3 gigawatt is not enough. It's less than half of the rate that we have to achieve in order to reach the target by 2030. All the players have strong plans, are all committed to, let's say, develop renewables. Edison, for example, aims at more than doubling its installed capacity in renewables. Today, we have 2 gigawatt. The target is to go beyond 5 gigawatt by 2030. And like us, many other players, there is an important pipeline, 6 gigawatt of projects that are, let's say, under construction, 70 gigawatt of PV projects that have been, let's say, posted in permitting. And if we sum up all the, let's say, requests for interconnection onshore, offshore, all in together, there are more than 200 gigawatts of requests. So one may think that, fine, there's no problem, we need to speed up and everything is going to be all right, we'll reach the target. In reality, there are many threats, many elements that somehow put at risk the possibility to really reach those targets. There is lead time for authorization, which is for PV goes beyond 13 months, and for repowering of wind, it's in the range of 20 to 40 months, so it's a lot. There's the lead time needed to interconnect to the grid, and the also adaptation time for the grid, because most of the renewables are in the south of Italy, and the demand, it's in northern Italy, so it has to be, the backbone to transport electricity has to be reinforced. And then, if we look carefully, we are somehow substituting the dependency from the Russian gas with a dependency from panels, from PV panels that are coming from China. So Europe somehow has developed important targets and steps in terms of, let's say, development of renewables, but it has not envisaged a plan of industrialization in order to develop the renewable technology that are needed for all the European countries to reach those targets. So this is an important element because we may not be in the condition to have all the panels that we would like to have. And then there is another important point that is linked to the fact that renewables are going to produce, they produce when the meteo conditions are there, the sun and the wind, and not necessarily when demand is demanding for electricity. So in order to reach 70% penetration of renewables into the power generation, Italy needs to develop energy storage. And if we look at energy storage, again, 90% of the cells, if not more, are produced in China. So again, we have the same problem as before. They're very expensive. And today, the regulation is not yet in place to have a clear incentivizing scheme. So this makes that we have to look for alternatives, and there are some alternatives. There is the possibility. Italy has a strong potential for the development of pumping hydro as a way to store electricity. It may be, there is an important potential in southern Italy. It's a technology that is already available, which has a very strong, let's say, local content, meaning that most of the value would remain in the country or in Europe if we develop the pumping storage. But again, we need to have regulation. This is an important element. So clear and stable regulation, very important in order to attract investments. Then industrialization and focusing on technology that do have, let's say, local content, it's very important. Then homogenization in the renewal of the hydro concession is also very important. Large hydro facility have different deadline in terms of concession, and this does not allow to do all those investments that could, let's say, improve the amount of the productivity of those plants. So these are some of the elements that threaten the system. Nevertheless, all the players are investing and doing all what's needed to try to reach those targets. But the speed of transition, it's not given, it's not known, and we have to be ready to have flexibility. And in this, gas, and here I come to the role of gas, gas is the best companion we can have for the development of renewables. It can supply flexibility in terms of timing if transition is late, or if renewable one day are going to accelerate, gas can compensate for that. But gas can also supply the flexibility, the daily flexibility that is needed during the day, till storage will not be sufficient to compensate for that. But what we have learned from this Ukrainian, from the energy crisis induced by the invasion of Ukraine and by Russia, is that in order to have security of supply, it is not sufficient at all to, let's say, increase the target in renewables. We need to, let's say, be very careful and check carefully the competitiveness of our supply. In order to, let's say, maintain competitiveness of our gas supply, we need to have those infrastructure that are needed to, let's say, be independent from, let's say, the situation in which we are now. Today, we depend from an oligopoly of suppliers, which has given the possibility of Russia to play around with volumes to increase prices. So we need additional infrastructure, which may seem to be some cost. I'm talking about, let's say, new LNG terminals we have seen in the Snam slides, but also new pipelines that somehow are a kind of insurance to, let's say, be able to arbitrate between and among different suppliers in order to keep competitivity of the system. So gas can be a companion of renewables, but it's not enough. I mean, gas, it's still an emitting, a CO2 emitting fuel, so we need to cope with the reduction of CO2. And again, it has already been mentioned, but it is very important as much as possible to try to substitute natural gas with green gas, so biomethane and hydrogen, maybe starting first by biomethane and then progressively also with hydrogen. And then it is also very much important to capture the emissions of CO2, not only from industrial plants, as it has been mentioned, or from biogenic CO2 production, but also from gas-fired power plants, which can compensate for delays in renewables. And last but not least, the role of energy efficiency is very important. So as an energy operator, we cannot, let's say, focus only on renewables, the grid scale. We have to focus also on distributed generation and energy efficiency. And here there are different sectors, and I'll try to be quick on the different sectors. The first one is the industrial sector. We are seeing a phenomenon, a trend in transition from cogeneration based on gas towards self-production based on PVs. So this has been strongly and very sharply pushed by the increase of prices and the need for security of supply, but it's a trend ongoing that sums up to the improvement efficiency of the production facility and electrification. So strong movement and strong need for, let's say, industrial operator to be supported in this transition. Then in tertiary and residential and public administration area, we see a lot of projects of urban regeneration that are starting to flourish all over Italy. Urban regeneration is a regeneration of a specific area of a given city. It's a kind of, let's say, gym for what will be the smart city concept. And it's a way to design energy flow and energy system together with the new urban areas. And it's an important way to decarbonize large areas of city, which if we were to take one by one, would take ages and very high cost to be realized. And the final element is energy communities. So we see emerging energy communities as a way to, let's say, bring small, medium enterprises, local public administration, and citizen, make them become proactive actor of the energy transition. So abandoning the NIMBY concept and being, let's say, active in this. And it's supported by, let's say, auto-consumption, self-consumption in a community where there are elements that are producing and others that are consuming. And this can be, let's say, applied at small level, multi-family building, for example, in the cities where you can put panels and make everybody benefiting from green electricity, or this can be applied to a larger share of territory, putting together the production on rooftop of the public administration with small, medium enterprises and citizens. So there is a full trend, and if we look only in at the potential of energy efficiency, in 2021, Italy has spent 10 billion euro in energy efficiency investments. Now, this market is expected to be multiplied by 3 and to be 30 million euro by 2030. So it's a very important place to be for energy operator, of course, but it is also a very important lever to support energy transition. And with this, I think that I'm perfect in timing.
Great. Thank you, Lorenzo. You maintained your presentation in the 50 minutes I asked to respect. And there are several elements in your presentation that suggest questions to discuss. I limit to ask only on one point. You mentioned, for instance, the risk to pass from dependence from energy, for instance, gas from Russia or from other country, to a dependence from China for batteries. You mentioned batteries. But you think this is a risk that is difficult to avoid, or there are elements that can suggest we are always still trying to find a solution for this kind of dependence?
I'm not saying we should not rely on China. What I'm saying is that we have to, let's say, have a plan Bs and also differentiate the sources of the technology we need for the transition, which means to have plans in order to, let's say, develop industrial capabilities at the European level. For example, recent announcement by Enel, a plant to produce PV panels in southern Italy. That's an example. Unfortunately, there are not many other examples like that in Europe. We need more, so we need also, let's say, industry to be developed for panels, for example. But also we see emerging technologies for storage. One alternative is hydropumping, so technology available. The other, let's say, alternatives we see are different kinds of batteries. There is a CO2 battery coming. There is a redox flow battery coming. So we have to explore and be ready to develop alternatives, not to depend only on a single source. Then, if China technology is still available and it's a good price condition, we are going to profit from that, but not necessarily be the only source of technology.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Now I ask TAMER EMRE to, sorry if I made not right pronunciation of your name, perhaps you can correct me.
It's okay, correct. Thank you very much.
Okay. TAMER is in a position, very interesting position to discuss the subject we are debating today. As director of market operation of a company that is responsible for managing and operating energy market, including power and gas and environmental commodities in a country that is an important country like Turkey, because Turkey is a bridge between East Asia and Europe, then as an observatory, interesting observatory for problems like problem we are discussing today. Tamer, how do you approach the items we are discussing from your point of view?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to my company, and thank you for the distinguished participants to this panel. I have also a presentation. I want to summarize our perspective. But before the presentation, I would like to tell that actually we are almost the same page with the things that mentioned Lorenzo. The situation is almost the same for every perspective, actually. Let me show you my presentation, and I want to keep the time as short as possible. Yes, I am the director of market operations of. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to give some brief information about what the electricity or gas markets or the capabilities of the Energy Exchange Istanbul. Our consumption is very big in Turkey for not only gas, for also the electricity. Our consumption, generation, the number of market participants is very big numbers. Here in exists Energy Exchange Istanbul, we have power and gas spot and futures markets. We have also TSOs for the electricity and gas. We are responsible for the organized spots and future markets of gas and electricity, but not only with this subject, we are also dealing with the billing transactions, also clearing mechanism, also eligible customer transactions, and many other subjects in our actually sector. So we are dealing with almost all the let's say sets of the problem, not just the consumer, the players, the generators, the infrastructure players also. In my slide, there are some numbers about the annual numbers for electricity and gas. I'm skipping these pages. I want to show you the actually generation share in Turkey. On the left-hand side, you can see the installed capacity, and the right-hand side, you can see the generation shares. As you can see, depending of the availability and also many reasons, actually we are the hydro country, but we cannot generate hydros that much. And we are using the imported coal also. Gas, we are trying to generate from the gas, yes, but a big share of this is depending on the wind and solar, and it is increasing day by day. Let me give you these numbers from the 2000s to let's say last 2 decades. We can show you Turkey has an enormous renewable capacity in the last decades, 1 or 2 decades, with the wind capacity and the solar capacity on the grid. It is a big amount, and yes, we are continuously having renewable capacities to the grid. This is the reality. It is good for us for the separating the resources or the availability for the security of supply. On the other hand, yes, we are day by day using more renewables, but we had energy crisis. What is energy crisis in our perspective? I'm afraid we are not just had or having energy crisis beginning from the let's say Russian and Ukraine war. Before that, almost 1 year before, we had energy crisis of let's say Rotterdam coal prices. These figures shows you the energy average market clearing price of Turkey. The red figure is representing the price ceiling. We are applying according to Turkish regulation the ceiling price, and accordingly the ceiling price we are increasing also the prices. Yeah, there's a formula for that, the regulation. But the thing I'm trying to explain is we had many not small, many stages of the crisis. Some of them is about the prices of the coal. Some of them is about the prices of the gas. We had some negative spark spread, dark spread seasons, and we have some climate difficulties. We are a hydro country, but sometimes we cannot use the hydro. At the summer season, deadly hot right now. So we are trying to save the water also. What I'm telling is let's say the energy sector is changing itself depending on not only the war, but also the climate change and the some let's say other difficulties in the markets. How it affects on our prices? Actually, this is the dark and spark spread figure in Turkey. Sometimes we are in negative. Negative means we cannot load these capacities on the price calculation in the day-ahead mechanism and also the real-time mechanism. This is the fact. By this way, we are loading the other sources and it costs too much, maybe. So it's about the energy security also. The other perspective is coming from the wind. We have over, as much as I know, 11,000 megawatts, 11 gigawatts, more than 11 gigawatts wind capacity right now. So it is good, one hand, but the other hand, it is difficult to manage it because you need to have a good infrastructure and the experience on dispatching, because the location and the grid sustainability is also important for that. Thanks God, yes, we can deal with it, but in the future, we need to understand the effects on the electricity market. In this figure, you can see that the wind capacity is becoming too much effective on the prices. So this is very important for the future perspective, I think. And I'm summarizing, the resource diversity of Turkey is like ideal, because we are having also the coal capacity, the gas capacity, the wind capacity, the hydro capacity. Yes, we are trying to get more investment on different sources. Yes, it's good, but almost no security of supply for the gas and coal, because as you know, like a bridge position between the Asia and the Europe, we have some gas tubes also. We have no security of supply almost, but the prices. Renewable investment acceleration is amazing in last decade, especially, but we experienced multiple crises beginning from the COVID-19, non-stop stages we have. Coal and gas prices are very effective on the market mechanism. The prices again, renewables might be maybe too much effective on the prices anymore. And we require new technologies, like Lorenzo said, storages. This is very important. And the new technologies, other technologies, I don't know. I'm not telling about the pumped storage in Turkey because we have many hydros, but why not? We need some technologies, because in the future we can have some difficulties about the infrastructures. Everything means money. We need to calculate it very sensitively, actually. More digitalization. We need more digitalization because the seconds are important than the minutes in the future. Well-developed network organizations, operations is very important for us because we are carrying too much energy, maybe in-house, some small regions. So it is very important. On the other hand, we can maybe spend too much money for the infrastructure, which means meaningless energy transition we will have is if we are having difficulties about this network operations. This is the last page. Thank you very much for the time. Actually, I hope I tried to summarize our perspective. More or less, we are almost the same pages.
For your interesting presentation. I think that, as you said, the particular position of Turkey make your country from one side privileged for some kind of problem. For instance, the impact of Russia-Ukraine crisis, yes, had also for Turkey consequences, but not the same level, the same entity than for Europe, for instance. But at the same time, you are in a position that gives you the possibility to make a comparison for country like Italy, like other countries that have not similar, but not so different condition. For the next, and I thank you very much for your presentation. Then now I ask Luca Bragoli, that is an old our friend of the Italian Association for Energy Economics, and he attended also the other conferences we had in the past years. Luca is the Chief Regulatory and Public Affairs Officer of ERG. That is a company that is a very interesting company because it's a company that changed completely its scheme. I can use this word because from an oil company now is a renewable energy company. Then made a really change of scheme. But at the same time, in this new condition, this company is fundamental to understand and to watch what are the difference, the target difficulties to reach the goal we want to reach with net zero that we mentioned at the beginning. I have some question for all of you, but if we have the time to do it at the end, I'll ask the question. For the moment, Luca, start with your presentation.
Thank you, Carlo. It's a real pleasure for me to have the chance to go through this presentation and say a few things about ERG, the company I've been working on for almost 20 years. So we have been in the energy sector for more than 80 years. We are, I would say, an historic player of the energy sector in Italy. We are listed on a stock exchange, and after being for more than 70 years an oil player, we are now a leading renewable operator in Italy and among the main players in the European onshore market and renewable markets. So I'll skip to this slide, which identifies the countries, the jurisdictions we currently operate in Europe. It's something like 9 different countries and 10 markets. And we have almost 3 gigawatts of installed capacity, both in onshore wind and PV, and more than 3 gigawatt, almost 3.5 gigawatt of renewable pipelines that we are developing across these different jurisdictions. In 2022, on May, we launched our last business plan, which is expected to deploy something like 2.2 gigawatt of additional renewables capacity, both wind, onshore wind, and PV. So we are targeting in 2026 almost 5 gigawatt of overall installed capacity. And our business plan and our business model relies on a quasi-regulated structure. This means that our revenues come from substantially from revenue stabilization mechanisms, which are PPAs or government-backed CFDs. And as I was saying, one of the main innovation we have introduced through our recently launched the business plan is this role of the solar, which is a new strategic pillar of our strategy, which is in addition to onshore wind, which has been historically the main technology we have been leveraging on. So, few words on the European approach to climate change and energy security. Why is that? Because, as I was saying, ERG is a European player, so this gives the regulatory features of the market we are mainly operating in. And as we all know, we have really challenging targets in terms of decarbonization and emission reductions, which imply also a penetration of renewables, an increasing penetration of renewables. According to REPowerEU, so the last communication of the European Commission, we are expected to reach a penetration of 45% on the final consumption of energy by 2030. So it's a really challenging target. And our role is that of being a strategic actor of this path, of this transition. This medium-term objective is now facing, let's say, a new reality, because from 2021 to 2022 till now, we have faced some new features in the market, in the regulatory market, coming from the energy crisis that we have experienced. The energy crisis is due to a number of factors, but the main factor, according to our analysis, is the dependence on Russian gas, which is something that the Ukraine war has highlighted. And I would say, in few words, that the Ukraine war, the Ukraine crisis, has made clear that the equation on which the decarbonization strategy of the European Union was founded has gone in pieces in a way pretty clear. So The equation was cheap gas from East to sustain industry and decarbonization in the European Union. So this cheap gas is no more available. And the European Union, the member states, have tried to identify ways to cope with this new reality. As our colleagues were highlighting before, one of the instruments that have been operated has been the search of new gas suppliers across the different states in the world which have this availability. But REPowerEU, the communication launched in May 2022 by the European Commission, is pretty clear in saying that the ultimate solution for the European Commission and for the European member states is renewables, because renewables are the only way to reduce in a structural term our dependence on foreign fossil fuels. That is why REPowerEU has identified a new increased target of 45% of RES penetration by 2030. Why is that? Well, it's pretty clear that renewables are a fundamental tool for winning this challenge of decarbonization, ensuring a higher energy security, and having prices which have a more stable structure. And again, why these technologies are both good for this target, because they are highly, and I refer to wind and solar, because wind and solar are highly complementary in their production profiles, and they can offer a real synergy to face the challenge of the clean energy transition. At the same time, we are aware that in order to increase the penetration of renewables, a proper storage capacity has to be matched with this renewable penetration we're talking about. Let's go to the reality we're facing in Italy, but not only in Italy. I would say in all the member states we are currently operating in. Despite this strategic role of renewables, which is mediatically really clear, loud, I would say, the deployment of renewables is lagging behind the 2030 objectives. Just to give you an idea of how much we are lagging behind, let's look at the numbers of 2022, where we are going to install something like 3 gigawatts of new renewable capacity. These are the numbers coming from our trade association, Elettricità Futura. Well, these 3 gigawatts, which are significantly higher than the numbers of the previous years, are significantly lower to the targets that we should achieve in order to get to the 2030 objectives, because we are expected to install something like 8 gigawatts per year of additional renewable capacity. So it's less than half of what is needed. And this is 2022, and it has been a good year compared to the previous years. Why is that? Well, let's see what the renewable operators are facing in Italy and in the other European countries. One of the consequences of the energy crisis and of the spikes of the electricity prices, which it's good to highlight this has been due to mainly to the prices of gas, of the main commodity through which part of the electricity is produced. Well, because of this, a number of uncoordinated clawback measures have been approved at national level, and this has hit the renewables development because it has hindered the ability to identify proper business model to rely on and to further invest in these technologies. Upon such a mess from member states, the European Union on October 2022, so 2 months ago, has approved a regulation, namely a council regulation, so an extraordinary legislative instrument activated by the council. And through this council regulation has identified a revenue cap, which in the expectation of the European Union would have been a unique cap, 180 euros across the different member states. But the truth is that the reality again has been that each member state is applying the council regulation on its own, introducing national caps different from the one identified from the council regulation, and again in an uncoordinated manner.
Time, Luca, remember the time.
Yeah, mindful of time, I'll try to accelerate and say that the main challenges that renewables operators like ERG are facing are represented by the authorizations. Lorenzo Mottura told us before, how long is it to get to the final permitting for both solar and onshore wind in Italy. The obstructive approach of some institutional bodies, I name explicitly the Ministry of Culture, which is a big hindrance for developing renewables in Italy, and then the role of regions and local community, which lacks of a real engagement. So we have not, for the time being, regional targets. We have not identified the go-to areas for renewables, and the administrative apparatus is not fit for the challenge. So that's these are the main problems we are facing. I would like to mention also the fact that for now, the auction, the CFD auction system in Italy is the one identified in 2019. The problem with these auctions coming from this decree issued in 2019 is that the numbers, the tariffs arising out of this decree are not in line with the current costs of the renewables LCOEs. Because one of the effects of the crisis we are in the middle of is that the LCOEs of the two main renewables technologies, wind and solar, has significantly increased. Renewables are still cheap and competitive compared to what we are paying electricity coming from gas or other fossil fuel sources. But these LCOEs are not aligned with the tariffs. That is why we have been experiencing in Italy, also in the most recent auctions, substantial undersubscription. I want to speed up just identifying what are the solutions for really streamline the uptake of renewables. This is our point of view. The first one is, as I was saying, having CFD auctions aligned with the current LCOEs. The second point is the finalization of the identification of the go-to areas by regions, the removal of sectoral and uncoordinated clawback measures. Let me say that in Italy, the new budget law has pretty surprisingly introduced a windfall tax, which in the council regulation was limited to the oil and gas sector, while in Italy we have extended this tax to the power sector and to the renewable one as well. And that is pretty surprising because it's completely in a complete contrast with what the European Union is saying.
Okay,
Third point is grid connections, which have to be expanded. But again, this is something that my colleagues have previously highlighted. I will end my intervention saying that notwithstanding all these others, these hindrances that I've been highlighting for 50 minutes, we believe that the energy crisis has highlighted the strategic role of renewables, because renewables are the only solution that can be deployed in the short and medium term, and gives the possibility to reduce dependence on foreign fossil fuels, fight climate change, and lower energy cost at the same time. Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Luca. And now we go to Alessio Cipullo, Head of Technical Affairs of Elettricità Futura, that is the main Italian association for electricity, for the electricity market. Unluckily, Luca, that is one of your main members, took a part of your time. That I ask you to be as concise as you can.
That is fine. Thank you, Carlo. And we offer also this kind of services to our members. So we reduce our time for them. So thank you. Aside from any jokes, many thanks to all of you. I kindly ask to project my slides, if please. But in the meantime, Elettricità Futura is the leading association representing the electricity sector in Italy. So if we can please go to next slide. Thank you very much. We basically represent over 70% of the electricity consumed and produced in Italy. And of course, we have here distinguished members of our association. I will be quick also because I have the luck. I was lucky enough to have many of the points covered by Lorenzo, by Luca, of course, during their presentation. So if we go to the next slide, we go very quickly. As we know, we are, of course, we always say we are in an energy crisis. We also still are in a climate crisis, and we know it from the also the extreme events we witness in every part of the world and in Italy as well. Going to the next slides, this is just a recap that of course we are facing in Italy. Those are the average prices we are seeing in 2022 for both gas. This is the TTF hub in the Netherlands and the Italian spot prices. So we are in the range of 6-7 times higher values compared to the average of the last few years. what we did as Elettricità Futura, and if we move to the next slide, please, was indeed to study what would be the target if we consider REPowerEU. As Lorenzo and Luca correctly said, there's an addition of 70 gigawatt of new electricity, renewable electricity, electrical power by 2030, according to the Fit for 55. If we take into account the REPowerEU, which is in the process of being approved, we studied that and we concluded that first of all, the electricity demand will increase. Today we are in the range of 318 terawatt hour. Then we will have to go to 360 terawatt hour. If we go to the next slide, please. One of the main points of the presentation, which I wanted to highlight, aside from the figures, so we think that we'll need to install around 80 gigawatt of new renewable power to achieve 84% of renewable share in the national electricity production, which is of course by 2030. This also means, as Lorenzo was saying, that we need a huge increase in storage. So we estimate 80 gigawatt hour new storage capacity of, let's say, large scale, utility scale, on top of the distributed one, and also the possibility of increasing the existing one as well. But what I wanted to point out is the benefit to the economy that this would bring to the entire society. So the figures you see here are economical benefits of about 340 billion euros in Italy alone, accumulated benefits by 2030 along the electricity sector, the supply chain, and of course also in general to the economy. This would also bring an estimate of almost 500,000 new jobs along the electricity sector supply chain in 2030. Compared to today, we are around 120,000 jobs, considering the power generation as well as electrification sector, and we would reduce by 64 million tons CO2 equivalent the emissions, which in percentage terms, compared to if we take the 1990 reference, it would be minus 75%. So this is what we are actually up to. And of course, as all the speakers said, this is what we could achieve, but we have many challenges ahead. If we move to the next slide, please. The other point, but will be very quickly, is of course we would reduce the import of gas as we are facing a crisis. This doesn't mean that we'll have to dismantle all our thermoelectric power generation. It will indeed very important to have it as a backup to support the growth of the renewables. This is a very important aspect. But of course, 85 gigawatt renewables also mean a reduction of, in our analysis, of about 20 billion cubic meters of imported gas. There are some simplifications. We've seen also different figures, but this is to say today, for instance, we import around 30, or in the past, in 2021, we imported 30 billion, more or less 30 billions of cubic meters of gas from Russia. This is just to give a figure. And if we move quickly to the next few slides, again, just to summarize, those are the figures. I'm trying to go, of course, very quickly, being aware of timing. You will find, of course, all this figure here, but if we go to the last few slides, I will just summarize very quickly. This transition is, of course, first of all, an important opportunity for the economy as a whole, and will also be important for jobs and people. So the transition, the emergency we're facing, the pandemics and the energy crisis has of course changed the structure of our sector, and will be extremely important to capitalize on that on a positive note. In terms of achieving the energy transition, of course, the challenges that Luca has mentioned in terms of the hurdles, we do see them. And if we go to the next slide, please. Again, the next slide, please. So we can skip this one. We have laid out a few, let's say, headlines in terms of priorities that we think will be necessary and fundamental to overcome the energy crisis and to put the energy transition at the heart of everything, starting from the updating on the national targets, simplifying bureaucracy, and for instance, for renewables, it will be very important to overcome the many different complex provisions, regulations we have to go towards a testo unico, a consolidated act for renewables, suitable areas, and of course the necessity to spread and to share the target among the regions. Of course, electrification and as well as hydrogen will play an important role. And I will go to the next slide. I'll close my brief speech to, let's say, repeat what has already been said. One of the key things today, and it's very urgent. In Italy, it's a similar situation in many countries. We are facing a very difficult situation with provisions for the so-called extra profits. There's a mismatch at the moment. There's a jigsaw of different regulations and different caps and different windfall taxes put in place in across Europe. At least this is not helping. This is not helping, for instance, the PPA market as well. And so to overcome those hurdles, it's really key. It's really one of the top priority we're facing right now. And I mean, sorry, I was very quick, but I tried to summarize the main points to try to be as much on time as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessio, because of your ability to stay in this more limited time. Sorry that we can't go on with the question and answer session, but the time is for us fundamental, because now we start with another other session, concurrent session, and we can use the time that they must use. Then I thank you very much, and I hope that you are available for other opportunity to discuss, because the subject that all your presentation posed are really interesting, and perhaps the time we have is too limited to discuss so important and large issues and subject and topic. Then I thank you, each one of you, Tamer, Lorenzo, Alessio, Luca, Xavier. We wait for next year, first of all, for next year conference we have next December 2023, but at the same time I want to organize another conference with more time, and I want to invite you, Tamer. This is the first time we see, but if we're available, I invite you to in the new year. I
hope next year we can discuss how we cope with this energy crisis in the past.
Okay, thank you, Tamer. Thank you, all you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.